Kathy Holman, my only sister, fell head over heels for the Prince of the Capital's elite circle at first sight. Just to create an opportunity, she didn't hesitate to drug him at a banquet. I didn't stop her at that time. In fact, I even gave her a hand to deliver the drug drink. To top it off, I thoughtfully booked a luxurious suite to carry out for her plan. In my previous life, I tried to intervene when I saw her spiking the drink, warning her that the Miles family wielded so much influence both in the legal and underground worlds. That means messing with them would be equal to courting death. That night, however, Chester Miles ended up spending the night with another woman. By the next day, I was engaged with said woman. In a flash announcement, my sister said nothing out loud about it. On the way home, however, she pushed me off an overpass. I was killed on the spot, my body crushed under a speeding truck. In my final moments, she screamed at me, accusing me of ruining her chance to marry into a wealthy family. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back at the banquet on that fateful day. This time I was determined to watch her dig her own grave. As I watched Chester drink the spiked wine, my sister stood at a distance, her eyes gleaming with scheming satisfaction. Within 2 minutes, the drugs kicked in. Chester's face flushed unnaturally red. His private bodyguards immediately stepped in, supporting him as they escorted him upstairs. I gave my sister an okay gesture and handed her the room key. I was about to slip away when she grabbed my arm. She whispered with threatening tone, "Don't think I don't know what's on your mind. You're not going anywhere until the job is done. Stay outside the room and keep watch for me. If Mr. Miles's people show up, you'd better know what to say and what to keep to yourself." This time I didn't stop her. I wanted to see just how far she could go with her schemes. My sister thought I would try to stop her. It was what I did in my previous life. Instead, this time around, I let go of her hand, glancing at the bodyguards who had already taken notice of her from afar. I smiled and said, "Relax. You're my sister. If I don't help you, who else will? When you marry into the Miles family, just don't forget about this sister of yours, all right?" In my past life, she was convinced that I had ruined her chance to marry into wealth, blaming me for her failure and my gruesome death. This time, I won't stop her. I'd even help her every step of the way. Let's see how far she can push her luck. Kathy didn't think twice about it. Tossing her head back, she smirked proudly. "At least you know your place. Once I marry into the Miles family, I'll get you a driver or a secretary job. That should keep you fed and clothed for the rest of your life. When we get upstairs, keep your mouth shut. If anyone asks, just say you're a server waiting for Mr. Miles's instructions. And if you ruin my plans, you know the consequences." Her sharp gaze pierced through me as she grabbed my wrist and dragged me upstairs with her. The bodyguard stood at the door as my sister made an excuse about delivering water and went inside. I stayed hidden at the end of the hallway, keeping a close watch. Not long after, a heavy thud came from the room. Moments later, Kathy was dragged out of the room unconscious by a group of men. 5 bodyguards wearing lecherous grins dragged her into the room next door. Seeing this, let out a sigh of relief and clapped my hands, ready to leave. Suddenly, a heavy blow struck the back of my head. Everything went black and I lost consciousness. When I came to, my limbs were tied to the bedposts with silk ribbons. In front of me was Chester's sweat-drenched face. My eyes widened in shock and I opened my mouth to call for help. Before I could, he silenced me with a kiss, his lips pressing firmly against mine. "Don't think I don't know there was something wrong with that drink tonight," he said, his voice cold. "And dangerous. Since you delivered it, you can deal with the consequences." My cries for help were muffled as the room was filled with heated breaths. I struggled fiercely, using every ounce of strength I had. But it was futile. Whatever drug Kathy had found worked too well. Chester didn't stop until morning, when he finally fell asleep. I endured the pain coursing through my body, quietly untying myself and slipping back into my clothes. Chester was infamous for his ruthless and vengeful nature. I wasn't foolish enough to stick around like Kathy would. After carefully erasing any trace of my presence in the room, I made my escape. Before leaving, I glanced toward the room where Kathy was dragged into. The door was left ajar, revealing a glimpse inside. Close from the 5 bodyguards were scattered across the floor. Kathy lay unconscious on the bed, completely out cold. I tried not to make a sound and quietly scrambled from that place away. When I got home, my parents rushed up to me eagerly. Not seeing Kathy with me, their faces immediately darkened. "Sarah, where's your sister? Why are you back alone?" Remembering how in my previous life this family had blamed me for ruining Kathy's opportunity and didn't even bother to claim my body after my death, I no longer cared to be polite. Maybe she overdid it with the drugs. "Mr. Miles is probably still occupied with her," I said flatly. My mother's skull instantly melted into a delighted smile. I knew it. Kathy is someone who can make things happen, unlike certain people, useless and nothing but a money drain after 20 years of raising them. My father didn't even spare me a glance, immediately urging my mother to start cooking a nourishing soup. Make sure it's ready when Kathy gets back. If she drinks it, she'll be able to have a son for Mr. Miles. Too tired to argue, I slumped onto the couch to rest. Just as the soup began simmering, Kathy walked into our house. She was limping, her neck covered in bruises and marks. It was obvious she had no idea who she'd actually spent the night with. The moment Kathy saw me, she wasted no time berating me in front of our parents. She accused me of failing to stand guard for her, not helping her clean up the mess, and even refusing to buy her the drugs she needed for her plan. My mother's face darkened immediately. Without hesitation, she slapped me across the face, her voice rising with fury. "I knew you were useless, worthless trash. Why did I even bother raising a money leech like you? Your sister finally got her chance, and not only did you refuse to help, but you left her behind to fend for herself. Money was falling from the sky, and you couldn't even pick it up. You're doomed to be a penniless worker your whole life." I held my stinging cheek, laughing bitterly. At her shameless words, "At least I make my money through honest work. Unlike some people, I'd never stoop to selling my body." My father's face twisted with rage. He grabbed the ashtray from the coffee table and hurled it at my head. Blood instantly soaked my clothes. He didn't so much as blink. Instead, he continued to hurl insults at me. "All you ever talk about is working. Do you think your pitiful wages will be enough to give me and your mother any comfort before we're dead and gone? You're a complete disgrace. And now you have the nerve to insult your sister. Look at yourself. What kind of trash do you think you are? You're good for nothing. If I'd known you'd turn out like this, I would have sold you off back then and saved myself the trouble. Marrying you off to some poor nobody for a few thousand in bride price? Do you think I run a charity?" I pressed a wad of tissues against the wound on my forehead, but no matter how hard I tried, the bleeding wouldn't stop. Disappointment overwhelmed me, and I couldn't hold back my retort. "I'm your daughter, not a piece of pork in a butcher shop for people to pick and choose. If you're so eager to sell your daughter's body, why not just open a brothel? Every penny I earn is from my own hard work. What's so wrong with that? If you despised me so much, why bother having me in the first place?" For a moment, panic flashed across both my parents' faces. Just as they were about to lash out again, Kathy interrupted, smugly, flaunting herself. "Don't mind her. Once I have a baby and marry into the Miles family, she'll be the one begging me for help, kneeling at my feet." At her words, my parents completely forgot about me. They rushed to Kathy, eager to hear about her progress. Kathy blushed, feigning shyness as she spoke. "You wouldn't believe it. Chester isn't nearly as cold and distant as the rumors say. He kept me up all night and I'm still sore everywhere. It's just that when I woke up, he was already gone. All he left behind was a bank card in the room. But with how many times we did it, I'm sure I'll get pregnant. When that happens, the position of Mrs. Miles is as good as mine."